A year ago, they set a pen beside my plate and thought I would not read what it was for. It is the 4th of July again, 2026. I am on the porch on Sumac Street, and the light is going soft and gold the way it does here in July. My granddaughter Etta is on the front walk with a bucket of sidewalk chalk. She is drawing a flag. The stripes are crooked, the stars are just dots. It is the best flag I have ever seen. There is a plate of watermelon on the rail. There are blue enamel plates on the table inside, the speckled ones my wife carried to every cookout for 40 years. A chair that used to sit empty is filled tonight. I keep a pen in the kitchen drawer now, capped. I put it there so I would remember. But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Harlan Boyd. I am 69 years old, though I turn 70 before the summer's out. I am retired. I fixed refrigeration and cooling for 30 years in and around Poplar Grove, Missouri, and I ran my own route for most of it. I am a widower. My wife Rosemary passed in the spring of 2023, and I still talk to her in the kitchen when the coffee's brewing. The town knows me as a quiet old repairman with a green truck and a dog named Biscuit. That is all most people see. For a long time, that was all I wanted them to see. Let me tell you how a quiet man gets mistaken for an empty one. I built a small life on purpose. I was up before the sun most of my working years, hands cold on a compressor before the world was awake. A man learns things with his hands that he never says out loud. He learns that most trouble hums before it breaks. He learns to listen for the change in pitch. I could stand in a grocery store and hear a cooler that was 3 days from failing. I could read a panel like other men read the paper. I never made a show of any of it. Rosemary and I bought the house on Sumac Street in 1988. We paid it off slow, a little at a time, the way people did then. We raised 2 children in it. Our daughter Paige came first in 1984. Our son Shane came 3 years later. Shane lives out in Colorado now, builds something with software I do not pretend to understand. The town thought the money died when I sold my route. It did not. It just went quiet, the way I did. In 2016, Rosemary and I sat down with a lawyer and put everything we had built into a living trust. The house, the savings, the little brokerage account we had fed 1 quarter at a time since Reagan was president. In 2018, I sold my route and my equipment to a younger man, and that money went into the trust too. I was the sole trustee. I was the one who signed. Rosemary held my hand on the drive home and said the thing she always said. Sign nothing you would not read to me out loud. I have kept that. Nobody in the family knew the size of it. They knew a man in work boots with a thermos. They did not know the man had done the boring, patient thing for 40 years. And that boring and patient adds up. A quiet man is easy to mistake for an empty one. I know that now. I did not understand until it was almost too late how easy. When Rosemary died, something shifted in how my family looked at me. I did not notice it all at once. It came in small pieces. The first piece was the pills. My daughter Paige started counting them out for me. A little plastic box with the days of the week on it. She would sit at my kitchen table and press the tablets into their slots and say it was so I would not double up. You forget sometimes, Dad, she said. It is fine. Everybody does. I did not forget. I had taken the same 2 pills at the same time every morning for 6 years, but I let her fill the box. It seemed to make her feel better, and grief makes people need something to do with their hands. I knew that better than anyone. The second piece was my checkbook. Paige's husband is a man named Colby Vance. He runs a business that leases kitchen equipment to restaurants, ovens and coolers and dish machines, and he is the kind of man who always has a new watch and a tighter smile. He came to me one Sunday after dinner, warm as a heat lamp, and said he had noticed some late fees on my accounts. Let us just hold the checkbook for you, he said. Keep it somewhere safe. Take the worry off your plate. There were no late fees. I have never paid a late fee in my life, but I gave him the checkbook because I wanted to see what a man does with a thing you hand him freely. You learn more that way than by fighting. He put it in a drawer at their house, and a small light went on somewhere in me, low and steady, the way a warning light comes up on a panel before anything is wrong. The third piece was the hardest to watch because it was my daughter. They started talking about me in the third person, at their own dinner table, with me sitting right there. Dad gets turned around lately. He does not really keep track anymore. Colby told a neighbor at the mailbox that I had gotten confused at the hardware store, which never happened. I stood 10 feet away and heard him say it, and Paige believed it. That was the part that took the wind out of me. Not Colby. I never expected much from Colby. But I watched my daughter start to look at me like a problem to be managed, like a leak she had to get ahead of. She would touch my arm and use a soft, slow voice, the voice you use with someone who is going. I said nothing. I want you to understand that I was not being noble. I was listening. Tiny reactions tell the truth, and I was still reading panels. I could read a room. Etta was the one clean thing. My granddaughter is 7. She would climb into my lap with a crayon and hand me a flag she had drawn and ask me to hang it on the refrigerator. I always did. A child does not manage you. A child just hands you a flag. There were other small cuts. There always are. They do not come all at once. They come like drips. At Thanksgiving, I brought a birdhouse I had built in my garage for Etta. Cedar with a little copper roof. I bent myself. Colby held it up in front of the whole table and laughed and said, "Look at that. Grandpa is keeping busy." Like it was a craft time project at a home. Paige told me it was sweet. Sweet is a word you use for a child. I set the birdhouse by the door and I did not say a word about the 40 years I spent bending metal for a living. There was the time Colby corrected me on my own furnace. He had a heating man out to their house, a young fellow in a company polo, and I mentioned the fellow had sized the unit wrong. Colby put a hand on my shoulder in front of the man and said, "Harlan used to tinker with this stuff. Let the professional handle it, all right?" The professional had it wrong. I had sized cooling loads before that boy was born. I let it go. 3 weeks later, their upstairs would not hold temperature, and nobody thought of the old man who had told them so. That is the thing about being written off. People stop hearing you exactly when you are most worth hearing. You could hand them the answer, and they would set it by the door like a birdhouse. I kept a quiet accounting of it, not out of spite. A man who has read failing systems his whole life keeps notes. I wrote down the dates the way I used to write down service calls. I did not know yet what the notes were for. I only knew the pitch was wrong and getting wronger. So that was the shape of my life going into last summer. Counted pills, a checkbook in someone else's drawer, a daughter who had started to grieve me while I was still all right. And under all of it, a trust nobody had bothered to ask about, sitting quiet as a paid-off house. Then came the 4th of July. Every year, Paige and Colby throw a cookout in their backyard. Folding tables, a flag on the porch, a cooler of pop, hamburgers going gray on a grill nobody watches close enough. Last year, I almost did not go. I am glad I did, though it did not feel like it at the time. I got there a little after 5 in the evening. I brought Rosemary's flag cake. She made one every year, white frosting, blueberries, and strawberries laid out like a flag, and I had learned to do it from the recipe card she kept taped inside our kitchen cabinet. It is written in her hand, a little slanted, with a note at the bottom that says, "Harlan skimps on the berries. Do not let him." I did not skimp on the berries. Paige met me at the door and kissed my cheek and called me her whole world. She meant it. That is the thing that still catches in my throat. She meant it, and 2 hours later, I heard what I heard. And both of those things were true at the same time. They had a folder on the table. It was near the end of the meal. The paper plates were sagging. Etta was chasing a sparkler somebody should not have given her. And there, next to my place, was a manila folder and a pen. The pen was uncapped. I noticed it the way I notice a cooler that is about to go. The pitch was wrong. I did not touch it. Colby leaned over and tapped the folder with 2 fingers. "Some estate stuff," he said, light as anything. "For later. Do not even worry about it now." I said I would look at it, and I kept eating my wife's cake. Then Paige leaned toward her husband. She thought I was turned toward Etta. She dropped her voice the way people do when they are sure they cannot be heard. "He signs tonight," she whispered, "whether he knows it or not." Colby smiled. He reached for the folder. "Then we are done worrying about him," he said. I set down my fork. I did not raise my voice. I did not stand up. I have been in rooms where a wrong wire could kill a man, and I learned a long time ago that the calm hand is the one that lives. I just set down my fork and looked at the two of them, and I said the truest, simplest thing I could say. I do not sign anything I have not read in the morning light. Never have. Rosemary's Rule. The table went quiet. Colby laughed, but it came out thin. Sure, Harlan, he said. Of course. No rush. I asked Paige for a cup of coffee. She got it for me. Her hand was not quite steady on the cup, and I watched the smile go out of Colby's face, slow, like a coal losing its heat, because a man who has planned a thing knows the exact moment his plan stops working. By midnight, the smile was gone. Mine stayed put. That was the night I stopped giving the benefit of the doubt, not to my daughter, to the situation. There is a difference, and it took me a while to understand it. I did not sleep much that night. I sat in Rosemary's reading chair with Biscuit's chin on my foot, and I thought about the folder I had not opened. I could have opened it. I could have marched into that yard and had it out. But I have watched men lose everything by moving fast when slow was called for. A cornered man breaks things. A patient man reads the panel. So the next morning I did the boring thing. I called an old friend. Chet Loomis and I have been drinking bad coffee together since the Carter administration. Chet ran the branch of the Poplar Grove Bank for 30 years before he retired. He knows more about how money actually moves in a small town than any three lawyers. We met at the diner in the back booth, and I told him about the folder and the whisper. Chet did not get excited. That is why I called him and not somebody else. Do not shout, Harlan, he said. He stirred his coffee. You shout, you become the crazy old man they are already telling everybody you are. Read, then let the paper talk. Then he got quiet. He looked at me a long moment over his glasses. There is something you should know, he said. It is not my branch anymore, but people talk. Back in June, a power of attorney came across the counter with your name on it. Somebody tried to use it. The manager over there, a young fella named Wesley Train, did not like the look of it. He refused it. I felt the floor of my stomach drop away. June, I said. June, Chet said. Before your cookout, before any of this. I sat with that. Somebody had walked into a bank in June and tried to act as me, with a document I had never seen, weeks before that folder ever landed by my plate. The 4th of July was not the beginning of anything. It was the second try. I heard Rosemary in the back of my mind, from the trust signing day in 2016, when the lawyer slid the papers across and I hesitated and she squeezed my hand. Sign nothing you would not read to me out loud. I decided I would be in the room the next time they tried, and I would bring the reading myself. Chet gave me a name, an elder law attorney 2 towns over, a woman named Regina Alderton, who he said did not scare and did not bill you to death. I called her that afternoon. I want to tell you what I did next, because it matters that it was not a scheme. I did not build a trap. I built a folder. Regina Alderton's office was small and smelled like old paper and lemon. She was maybe 55, gray coming in at the temples, reading glasses pushed up on her head. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, which is rarer than you would think. Then she asked to see the trust. I had brought it, all of it. The original from 2016, the brokerage statements, the deed to the house on Sumac Street. She read for a while, then she took off her glasses. Mr. Boyd, she said, do you understand what you are holding? I understand I signed it, I said. You are the grantor and the sole trustee of this trust, she said. That means you, and only you, control what is in it. Your house is in it. Your accounts are in it. Nobody amends this. Nobody adds a trustee. Nobody moves a dollar without your knowing signature. Not your daughter, not her husband, not a lawyer they hire, only you. They had papers, I said. A folder. Colby said it was estate stuff. Let me guess, she said. An amendment adding a co-trustee and a durable power of attorney naming him as your agent. I did not say anything. She could see the answer on my face. An amendment you do not knowingly sign is a piece of paper with no life in it, she said. A power of attorney you did not validly execute is the same. They cannot take what only you can give, Mr. Boyd, so do not give it. She put her glasses back on. Bring me the folder, and do not sign anything, even for a doctor, without calling me first. I asked her about the bank thing, the June attempt. She got very still. That, she said slowly, changes the color of it. Trying to use a power of attorney you know was never properly made to act as another person at a financial institution is not a family misunderstanding. Get me confirmation of that in writing if you can, and be careful. I went to the bank the next morning and I asked to see Wesley Train. He was younger than I expected, nervous, careful, the kind of young man who follows a rule because it is the rule. I told him who I was. I watched something cross his face, and then he asked me to sit down in his little glass office, and he closed the door. "Mr. Boyd," he said, "I have been hoping you would come in. In June, a man presented a durable power of attorney with your name on it and tried to move funds and open a line against a property. The document was not right. The notarization did not match our records. And frankly, sir, the man could not tell me your date of birth. I refused it. I made a note. I was not sure who to call." "You did the right thing," I said, and I meant it. A young man following a rule had bought me time he would never know he gave me. He printed me a record of the refusal. He kept it careful, businesslike, but as I stood to go, he said one more thing. "He was not happy when I turned him down," Wesley said. "He said his father-in-law would sign it himself one way or another." One way or another. I drove home the long way, past the shop I used to own, and I let that sentence sit with me. I met Chet again the next morning, same back booth. I laid the bank record on the table between the sugar packets. He read it like a man reading a meter. "You know what this is," he said. "A fella does not forge his way into a bank in June unless something is due in the fall. Find out what he owes and when. The calendar will tell you more than the man ever will." So I did the boring thing again. I went home and opened the gray file box I have kept on the garage shelf since before Paige was born. Every service contract, every tax receipt, the passbook, the deed. Rosemary used to call that box my second wife. But a man who keeps his paper cannot be told what he did and did not do. Paper remembers even when a town forgets. I sat on the garage floor with Biscuit and laid 30 years out on a moving blanket in careful stacks. I found every statement for the accounts Colby had offered to hold for safekeeping. I could see, to the dollar, what had gone out that should not have. Small amounts, test amounts, the way a man dips a toe in before he dives. I photographed all of it. I made copies. I put the originals in a safe deposit box at Wesley Train's bank, which felt like the right kind of joke. Now I could have stopped there. I had the trust. I had the sole trustee clause. I had the bank's refusal in writing. That was already a wall no folder could get through. But I am a man who likes to know why a thing broke, not just that it broke. So I did a little more reading. Colby's business was a matter of public record. It did not take much. His leasing company was underwater. There were 2 liens filed against it that spring. A note he had personally guaranteed was coming due, a big one, and he did not have it. He needed money the way a failing compressor needs Freon, and he had gone looking for it in the only place he thought was soft. An old man he had decided was already gone. The equity in a paid-off house on Sumac Street. That was the target. That was always the target. I understood the man completely then. I did not forgive him, but I understood him. And then something happened that I did not plan for, and it turned the whole thing over in my hands. Paige sent me a text by mistake. It was meant for Colby. It was a long one, the kind you thumb out fast when you are upset. She was worried about her father. She was worried about me. She wrote that she hated doing this, that it felt wrong, but that Colby had convinced her it was the only way to protect me. That I was broke. That I was slipping. That if they did not get control now, I would lose the house to my own confusion, and they would have to put me somewhere. He had told her I was broke. He had told her I was slipping. He had built her a father out of lies, and then handed her the pen. I read that text 4 times, and I understood finally that I had gotten the biggest thing wrong. I had spent a whole grieving year thinking my daughter had turned on me. I had built a wall against her in my heart without telling anybody, least of all her. But Paige had not turned on me. Paige had been lied to about me by a man who slept in her house and smiled at my table. She was not the schemer. She was the second victim. She just did not know it yet. I had been grieving a daughter I had not actually lost. I sat down on the tailgate of my truck in my own driveway, and I put my hand over my mouth, and Biscuit came and leaned against my leg, and for a minute I could not do anything at all. Then I got up. Because now I did not just want to stop them. I wanted to give my daughter back the truth. And there is only one clean way to do that. You do not tell a person their husband lied to them. You let them watch it happen in the light, in front of witnesses, where it cannot be argued away. Regina told me they would try again and soon, because a called note does not wait. She was right. 2 weeks after the 4th of July, Paige called me and asked if I would come to a family dinner. A nice one. Just us. To talk about getting my affairs in order, she said, and I could hear Colby's words in her mouth, and I could hear how much she hated saying them. Of course, sweetheart, I said. I would love that. Colby is having a friend come by, she said. A notary, just to make it easy. That is thoughtful of him, I said. I called Regina. She said she would come with me. I asked her to wait in her car until I texted her, because I wanted the room to be exactly what they had built before I changed it. She understood. She is a patient woman, too. That is why Chet sent me to her. The dinner was on a Sunday in the middle of July. Paige made a roast. The good plates were out, not the blue enamel ones, the other ones. Etta was at a friend's house, which I was grateful for, because a child should not have to watch the adults in her family learn the truth about each other. We ate. Colby talked too much the way he does. He talked about how important it was to plan ahead. He talked about how he only wanted what was best for the family. A man tells you who he is if you let him talk long enough. Then the plates were cleared and the folder came out, and a woman I did not know set a little notary stamp on the table beside a stack of paper. Colby slid the folder across to me. He had tabs on it now, little colored tabs where I was supposed to sign. Just sign where the tabs are, Harlan, he said. His voice was warm and easy and completely certain. It is all for you. Takes the burden off. You will not have to think about any of it. Paige would not look at me. She was looking at her hands. I did not pick up the pen. Before I sign anything, I said, I would like somebody to explain to me, out loud, what these papers actually do. My wife had a rule about that. Colby's smile flickered, just a hair. It is just standard stuff, Harlan. Estate planning. Regina, the notary here, can walk you through it. I would like my own attorney to walk me through it, I said, and I sent the text. Regina Alderton knocked on the door about 90 seconds later. I have never seen a room change temperature so fast. Colby stood up. I do not know who this is, he said, but this is a family dinner. I am Mr. Boyd's attorney, Regina said, calm as a Sunday. He asked me to be here when he reviews documents. That is his right. Please sit down. She did not raise her voice once. She just started reading. She read the trust first. She read the paragraph that names me as sole trustee and grantor, and she read the paragraph that says no amendment is valid without my knowing signature. And she looked up and said plainly, this trust cannot be changed by anyone but Mr. Boyd. This amendment you have prepared adds Mr. Vance as a co-trustee. Without a knowing signature, it is void. It is a piece of paper. Then she picked up the durable power of attorney. This document, she said, would make Mr. Vance the agent over Mr. Boyd's finances. She turned to Colby. You should know that a durable power of attorney with Mr. Boyd's name on it was presented to the Poplar Grove Bank in June of this year. It was refused as invalid. The bank kept a record. I have a copy. She set the copy on the table. The notary, that poor woman, looked at the paper, looked at Colby, and reached over and picked up her stamp and put it back in her bag. I did not know about any of that, she said quietly. I am going to go. And she went. The room was silent. And then Paige spoke. Her voice was very small. Wait. She was looking at Colby now. In June? There were papers in June? Her voice climbed. You told me none of this had started. You told me we were just getting ahead of it. She picked up the bank record with a shaking hand and read it. You told me he was broke, Colby. You told me he was slipping. You told me if we did not do this, he would lose everything. Colby's smile was gone. It had been gone since the knock on the door. Paige, he said, let us talk about this later. You said my father was losing his mind. Her voice cracked on the last word. She turned and looked at me, and 40 years passed over her face in about 2 seconds. All the Sundays and the crayon flags and the counted pills. And I watched her understand all at once that the confused old man she had been protecting had walked into this room carrying his own attorney and a paper trail and a wife's rule about reading in the light. Dad, she whispered, you are not slipping at all. Are you? No, sweetheart, I said. I am not. Colby tried once more. They always try once more. He spread his hands and put the warm voice back on, the heat lamp voice, and he said we were all family, and this had gotten blown out of proportion, and everybody here wanted the same thing. Sit down, son, I said. I did not say it hard. I said it the way you tell a man the ladder he is on is not rated for his weight. You are done talking now. And he sat. That is the whole of the violence in this story, if you want to call it that. An old man told a young one to sit, and he sat, because the paper was on the table and there was nothing left to sell. I have thought since about why he sat. It was not fear of me. I am an old refrigeration man with a bad knee. It was that a lie only stands as long as everyone in the room agrees to hold it up, and the moment Regina read the trust out loud, there were not enough hands left. That is the whole trick, if it is a trick. You do not overpower a lie. You stop being the one who carries it, and you let the rest of the room set it down. Regina gathered her folder. Paige was crying, but it was the clean kind, the kind that comes when a weight you did not know you were carrying finally sets down. No shouting, no police, no dramatic ending. Just a room full of people learning the truth at the same time, which is the only fair way for a truth like that to arrive. I want to tell you what I did next, because I think it is the part that matters most. I did not destroy him. I could have. Regina told me later in her office exactly what I was holding. She said the attempt to use a power of attorney he knew was never properly made, to act as me at a bank, was not a misunderstanding and could be referred to people whose job it is to look at such things. She laid it out plain. She did not push me either way. She just told me the truth and let me decide, the same way I had wanted the truth laid out for Paige. I thought about it for 3 days. I thought about Etta, who would grow up hearing whatever the adults did next. I thought about Rosemary, who forgave more than I ever deserved. And I decided. I told Colby he would sign a paper of my choosing this time, a restitution agreement. He would pay back every dollar he had drained out of the accounts he held for safekeeping, and he would never touch the trust or my name again, in any form, for any reason. If he did those things, I would not send anyone after him. If he did not, I would. I am not going to ruin you, I told him. We were standing in Paige's driveway and his fine watch caught the streetlight. I'm going to stop carrying you. There is a difference, and you are about to learn it. The business did the rest on its own. I did not have to lift a finger. That big note he had guaranteed came due in August, and there was no old man's house to borrow against, and the bank called it. His leasing company folded by the fall. That was not my doing. That was the natural weight of a thing built on borrowed time. I only declined to be the beam that held it up. Accountability is not the same as cruelty. I keep having to say that, to myself as much as to you. I wanted the truth standing up in that room. I did not want him on the floor. A man who grinds another man into the ground becomes the thing that was done to him. Mercy is refusing to make that trade. The door with Colby is closed now. I closed it kindly, but I closed it. The door with my daughter is a different story. It did not heal all at once. Nothing does. Paige and Colby separated that fall, and she moved back to Poplar Grove, into a little rented place 6 blocks from the house on Sumac Street. The first weeks were hard and quiet. She apologized more than she needed to. I told her to stop. You did not do this to me, I said. You were lied to about me. There is a difference, and I spent a whole year on the wrong side of it myself, so I am the last man who gets to hold it against you. One afternoon in October, I sat her down at my kitchen table, the same table where she used to count my pills into that little plastic box, and I showed her everything. The trust, the brokerage statements, the passbook Rosemary and I started in 1981 with $11. I showed her how a boring, patient thing done for 40 years turns into something real. She cried when she saw the number. Not because it was large, because it meant her father had never been broke, or fading, or a burden, and she had almost signed away the proof of a whole quiet life without ever asking to see it. I should have asked, she said. I should have just asked you, Dad. Ask me now, I said. We have got time. So I taught her, all that winter, how the accounts work, how the trust protects the house, how you read a paper before you sign it, in the morning in the light. She took notes in a spiral notebook like a girl in school. Etta would sit between us and draw flags. Shane came home for Easter. He had believed me the whole time from Colorado on the strength of nothing but knowing his father, and I will not forget that. The two of them, my grown children, did the dishes together in my kitchen and argued about a ball game, and I stood in the doorway and had to go out to the porch for a minute so they would not see my face. The town started to read me right again, slow, the way frost leaves a windshield. Word gets around a small place. People heard, in the sideways way people hear, that the quiet old repairman had walked into a room with his own lawyer and turned a thing around without ever raising his voice. At the diner one morning, the waitress refilled my cup and said, "Heard you had some excitement, Harlan." I said it was mostly paperwork. She laughed and left the pot. Chet just nodded at me across the booth like a man confirming a reading. He did not say he told me so. That is why he is my friend. There were harder afternoons. Paige had days when the shame of it sat on her so heavy she could barely lift her eyes. I would catch her at my sink, scrubbing a pan that was already clean, and I knew she was somewhere else, back at that folder, hearing herself say the words Colby had put in her mouth. I would put my hand on her shoulder the way I wish I had a year earlier. "Look at me," I told her one time. "You did not build the lie. You believed a man you were supposed to be able to believe. That is not a crime. That is a marriage failing, and you are already out of it. Now dry that pan. It is dry." She laughed then, a real one, the first in a while. I made her learn the money because I did not want her ever again at the mercy of a man who told her what she could and could not understand. We sat at the kitchen table with the spiral notebook. I showed her compounding. I showed her how $11 in 1981 became something a person could stand on if you fed it and left it alone. I showed her how to read a statement, a deed, a trust, in the morning, in the light, out loud. She got good at it. She got better than I am, honestly, once she stopped being afraid of it. One Saturday I changed the trust, on purpose this time, in daylight with Regina at my elbow and Paige reading every line before I signed. I named Paige my successor trustee and Shane behind her. Not because I'm going anywhere soon, because a thing should be in writing before it is needed, not after, and because I wanted my daughter holding the pen for once instead of having it slid at her. "Read it to me out loud," I told her. She read the whole thing. Her voice did not shake. Etta drew a flag on the back of the signature page. Regina, who does not scare and does not bill you to death, let her keep it there. Rosemary's flag cake recipe card came off the cabinet door in June. Paige wanted to learn it. We made it together, the white frosting and the berries laid out like a flag. And I told her the note at the bottom, and she laughed and put in twice the berries her mother would have. I answered one letter from Colby. He sent it in the spring, and it was mostly excuses with an apology hidden in the middle, like a raisin in bad bread. I wrote back 2 lines. I told him I hoped he would build an honest life and that he would not find a way back into ours. Then I sealed it and mailed it and let it go. That is the last I will say of him, which brings me back to this porch. This 4th of July, 2026. The blue enamel plates are on the table tonight, the speckled ones. Paige is inside pulling the flag cake out of the refrigerator, and she did not skimp on the berries because I raised her right even when I thought I had lost her. Etta is on the walk with her chalk. Shane is on the phone from Colorado, hollering Happy 4th into my ear. And the chair that used to sit empty is filled, because my daughter is home. The table got smaller this year. Somehow it got fuller. The pen is in the drawer, capped. I keep it there to remember that the folder came within one signature of a life, and that the thing that saved me was not cleverness, and it was not strength. It was a habit an old woman taught me at a kitchen table. Read it in the light. Sign nothing you would not read out loud. So let me say the last part to you, directly, because I think some of you already know why. If you have ever been treated like you were already gone, if you have ever sat at your own family's table and heard yourself talked about in the third person, like a chore, like a leak somebody had to get ahead of, if you have ever handed something over freely just to watch what a person would do with it and had your heart broken by the answer, then you and I have sat in the same chair. Here is what I want you to carry out of this house tonight. Being quiet is not the same as being empty. Being patient is not the same as being weak. And being underestimated, painful as it is, can be the very thing that gives you room to stand up straight when it counts. If this story meant something to you, I hope you will share it with someone who may need to hear it. Maybe an old friend who has started to feel invisible at their own table. And tell me in the comments about the person in your life who was underestimated the longest. I would like to know their name. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember, no matter how old you are or how quiet you have become, it is never too late to choose dignity over pride, truth over noise, and love over fear.